Hello and welcome to Songs for the Struggling Artist, the blogcast. This is Emily, and this is episode 108. And I belong to a podcast group on Facebook, and somebody was like, you make sure you always tell people what the podcast is about at the beginning of the podcast. And most people have like a tagline, like the podcast where we do whatever. And I can do that for my other podcast. But I don't know. I mean, the tagline I have on the blog is an artist wrestling with the artist stuff. But I don't know that really sums up the podcast. So if this is your first time listening, which is fairly unlikely, but if it is, hello, welcome. And here's what I do. I read the blog. And sometimes it's about art, and sometimes it's about feminism, and sometimes it's about other stuff. And then I sing a song. So, so I'm going to read to you today's blog, which is called Sometimes I Need Applause. My life in the arts began with performance. I also wanted to be a writer, but it was theater that tipped the balance. From the first time I stood on a stage, I was besotted. As the tightrope walker in the first grade circus, I pretty much just tiptoed in a line on the stage, but pretending to be doing more was a thrill. The applause was intoxicating. I loved performing passionately. Talent shows were my time. I got into plays as soon as I possibly could. The response was immediate, and applause felt better than just about anything else ever. Having a performing career, however, did not feel as good as I had hoped it would. The moments on stage and in rehearsal were sometimes euphoric, sometimes routine, and sometimes devastating. And all of that was the best of it. The rest of it was the worst, and it's why I more or less gave it up. I started recording songs in my living room when I didn't know how else to comfort myself in 2016. But despite the performative craft and context, singing for a microphone is not, in fact, performing. There is no audience in front of me. There is no immediate return on the energy given. There is no applause. I started to think about this distinction of experience after I released the albums of the songs that came out of my podcast, this podcast that you're listening to. As I prepared to send the first album, out into the world, I had a sense of excitement and anticipation. I wondered what would happen. And then I released it, and nothing happened. Like, no response. Not for weeks, actually. Dropping an album was less like dropping balloons into a party and more like dropping something off a cliff. For a performer used to working in a live medium, the lag time between sending something out and seeing a return was shocking. I did it 4 times this year with 4 albums, and each one was a similar non-event. The same is true for podcasts, my fiction, and the blog. The response tends to happen on its own time. If people say anything at all, and they probably won't, it will be weeks or months down the line. This is an aspect of making things that is taking me some getting used to. It is a completely different model of creation. I'm very happy to not have to depend on an audience's immediate reaction to something anymore, and to not have to first gather a large group of people into a room to do something is great. But I do miss applause. I feel silly about it, but I have a performer's heart. I felt sad a few weeks ago, and I was trying to understand it, and I found myself telling my partner that maybe I just needed some applause. And he gave me some. And darned if I didn't feel better. I mean, maybe sometimes it's just that simple. Sometimes I just need applause. Not everyone does. My partner, for example, has no interest in applause, but luckily was happy to provide some for me. I'm curious to learn how those of you who work primarily in non-time-based media handle the lag between release and response. Do you have methods for managing the wait as people listen or read slowly, at their own pace, as they should, of course? Or do you just find nice people to applaud for you occasionally? Or maybe you don't need applause at all. I wish I were like that. But I have to acknowledge just how valuable applause is to this former elementary school pretend tightrope walker. So, there it is, my confession of the week, month, year, I don't know. Yes, I am an applause. I don't know if I'm an addict, because I can live without it. I just sometimes, sometimes it's like you need a hug, you need a this or a that, and for me, sometimes I need some applause. It's just not really a thing I really realized that I missed. But yeah, it feels a little. It feels a little vulnerable, actually, to confess my love for applause and my enjoyment of it. But just like getting it even in a joke fashion, like being clapped for and like knowing it's just because I just said I needed some applause. Like it's still actually like I did feel better. It was so crazy. And I think actually for a lot of performers, it's true. I had a couple people who, other performers, especially clowns. I think for those of us who are clowns, it's especially acute. But some other lady clowns, friends of mine, were like, if you find the answer to this question, please pass it on. Because, yeah, sometimes it can feel kind of crippling to just be like, you don't want to just do something because you want people to clap for you. But then also, like, it's really nice when people clap for you. Anyway, so that's the story. So the song here for us here at the end, I was trying to think, like, okay, what's a song about clapping? And there's a lot of them. The first one that I thought of was a song from a musical called Applause, which I must have checked out of the library and maybe like copied the tape or something. But I don't think so I knew the song sort of, but it's actually not that great of a song. I liked it as a teenager, but listening to it more recently, I was like, no. Also, it was just not going to sound good with me and a guitar. But I did find a really, wild clip of Bonnie Franklin singing that song, Applause. And she's like a much more physical performer than I realized. So that was actually kind of delightful. So check that out if you're interested. But in sort of Googling, like, okay, what are some songs about clapping? What are some songs about applause? I checked out a couple of them, like, there's the meter song. I think it's called the clapping song. And it goes, clap your hands now, people, clap now. Clap your hands now, people, clap your hands. And that's basically all there is to the song, aside from, like, a really awesome bass line and a really great, like, funky beat. And I was like, unless I get really good at playing funk really fast or, like, buy a bass or... Anyway, I just was like, it's not gonna fly. So it's not that song. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But I do love that song. But when in my Googling around, I discovered Lady Gaga's song Applause, which probably, if it weren't obvious by the 8 episodes on Gen Xery that I did last year, probably fairly clearly places me outside of the current generation, because there's like 8 gajillion million views of this video, and I had never even heard the song before. So So if you're in my generation, I'd like to introduce you to this song by Lady Gaga called Applause. If you're in a subsequent generation, I hope you enjoy this version of a song that you already know well. So a couple funny things about this song. First, I was trying to solve this question. There was some debate online about a particular lyric, whether she was saying Kunst, as in the word for art in German, or Kunz, as in the artist, Jeff Koons. And it's the artist, so it's very clear. She said it herself. But in sort of searching around for the answer to that question, there was this whole debate about, like, does she take herself is this song a tongue-in-cheek? Like, she can't really just be saying she likes applause. And to me, it's just like, of course she does. Of course she's a performer. Like, it's not... I can't imagine a performer for whom this would not be completely in earnest, even though it probably seems silly to someone who is not a performer. Yeah. Anyway. So this is Lady Gaga's Applause. I stand here waiting for you to bang the gong, to crash the critics who say, is it right or is it wrong? If only fame had an ivy, baby, could I bear being away from you? I'd find the vein and hit it here. I live for the applause, applause, applause. Live for the applause, applause. Live for the applause, applause. Live for the way that you cheer and scream for me. The applause, applause, applause. Give me the thing that I love. Put your hands up, make them touch. Give me the thing that I love. Put your hands up, make them touch. Make it real loud. Make it real loud. I overheard your theory, nostalgia's for geeks. I guess, sir, if you say so, but some of us just like to read. 1 second, I'm a Koons fan. Suddenly the Koons is me. Pop culture was an art, now art is pop culture in me. I live for the applause, applause, applause. Live for the applause, applause. Live for the applause, applause. Live for the way that you cheer and scream for me. The applause, applause, applause. Give me the thing that I love. Put your hands up, make them touch. Give me the thing that I love. Put your hands up, make them touch. Make it real loud. Make it real loud. Make it real loud. I live for the applause, applause, applause. Live for the applause, applause. Live for the applause, applause. Live for the way that you cheer and scream for me. The applause, applause, applause. Live for the way that you cheer and scream for me. The applause, applause, applause.